3, 2, 1, go.
You're listening to The Kyle Chambers Show.
And welcome to The Kyle Chambers Show. My name is Kyle Chambers. I'm here today with Will Nash. Will Nash is the PR and Communications Director at Bush Systems, and he has been involved in media for several years. He is a teacher in the Broadcast and Radio and Creative Content program at Mohawk College, and he's a Mohawk College graduate himself. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Kyle, thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me on. It's great to be here with you.
What inspired you to start your career in the media field and eventually switch over to public relations and PR?
It's one of these situations that I'm sure if you've ever listened to, someone else who's worked in the industry, you probably heard similar stories, but I was definitely that kid. I was that boy who would rush home from school at the end of my day in grade school, being like 11, 12, 13 years old. And the first thing that I would do, because you have to keep in mind, this is before social media, this is before TikTok, this is before Instagram, is I would go home, I would go to my room, and I would listen to the radio. I listened to the countdown. I listened to, my favorite pop songs. I listened to my favorite personalities. And it was just like me with this tiny little radio in a small bedroom. And I just fell in love with radio more than anything else, like more than watching TV, more than any other activity. And I just was really mesmerized by, I guess, like just the way that you could hear someone tell a story on the other end in between your favorite songs and feel so connected to someone that, at that point, for the most part, you didn't know what a lot of these on-air personalities even looked like, right? So it was all audible. It was all what was in your earphones. And, I had actually went to York University for a year after I graduated high school. And the only reason I went to university is because all of my other friends were going to university. So I was like, that's just what you do, right? But by the Christmas of that year, I knew that I felt like it didn't belong there. Like I felt like these were not necessarily these classes. I didn't feel like that's where I should be. So I applied to college, and because I thought about it, I'm like, oh my God, like I've loved broadcasting. I've loved radio. I've loved anything media related my entire life. So why don't I just apply to a radio program? And then, so I did that, somehow Mohawk College accepted me back then. And I was like 19, 20 years old. I was able to get a placement at Energy 95.3, which is still that frequency, right? So went back to that frequency on the street team. So, and I enjoyed working for free as a member of the street team over my paid summertime job. And then from there, I worked in promotions. I ended up, going to Northern Alberta to really cut my teeth in a very teeny town called Peace River, where I did the afternoon show there. Like, I think there was like less than 9,000 or 10,000 people that lived there. I'd never really moved away from Ontario until that. And then I came back to Ontario and I ended up working in Barrie doing an evening show at B101. One of my biggest dreams was to always work in Toronto radio because I grew up, that was the radio market that I listened to the most, being just from east of the city. And so I worked at 99.9 Virgin Radio, one of my dream stations. And then, ended up in Kitchener at Chime, and then back to Barrie. My second trip in Barrie during the pandemic was doing afternoons at Fresh 93.1. And then that has now led me, and just recently, I've kind of, taken a little bit of a turn where I'm now the PR and communications coordinator at Bush Systems in Barrie. And it's just kind of it's been a wild ride all these years. Like, I can't believe it's been almost 20 years.
Who was your favorite person you listened to growing up when you had a passion for radio and wanted to cut your teeth in the industry?
Okay, so again, I think this is going to make me sound like I'm 900 years old, but back when I was like 11, 12 years old, there was a personality who's still working in radio, Tarzan Dan. So I used to listen to his radio show. He had a TV show called The Hit List on YTV, where he, did like a top 30 countdown of the biggest pop songs and top hits that were out at the time. And to listen to him now, he would be very different from the style of radio that you're hearing. Like, he was a very over the top. He was very, almost hyper sounding on air. That was one of the people that I can probably say was one of the reasons why I ended up wanting to be in radio, was because I, would just go home and listen to him. Not only listen to him on the radio, but watch him on TV. So back then, he was a really big personality within the Toronto market.
How do you think the radio background has helped you in public relations in your current position?
So I will say I'm fairly new. Like I'm just shy of 3 months in my PR and communications role at Bush Systems. But the interesting thing is that when I was talking to them about coming onto this company, is one of the first things that they said to me, in this role, whoever it is that we decide to hire, we want to make sure that we hire someone who has a personality or is outgoing or has, that sort of ability to connect to a lot of different people. And I mean, in my mind, I'm sitting in that interview thinking, well, I mean, I have been on the radio for the last number of years, and I have, posted a lot in social media. So, I mean, hopefully this helps me out in the end. But I think the biggest thing so far that I've learned is that, these are some of the things that I've done in my job is I've been hosting and emceeing events for the company, such as like a town hall, which again, did a lot of that working in radio. I've written blogs for their website, Bush Systems website. I've done a lot of internal and external communication. So the internal stuff is like, getting any of that messaging out to staff. Also things like, Indigenous History Month, Pride Month, Black History Month, like getting that messaging out to the staff. So you have to be really strong at writing because you don't want to send an email out to 100 people or post something on a forum to 100 people and you've got typos and grammar and all this stuff, right? So those are some of the things that I feel like I definitely picked up from the radio side of things. Another thing that's actually because of this is I'm managing all the social media accounts for Bush. So that includes, posting the content, creating the content, responding to people on social media. And then, you know what, you actually may be one of the first people to hear this. I don't think I've ever spoken about this really publicly, but I'm also going to be doing a podcast with them. Yeah. So Bush Systems, just give some people some background information. What they do is they distribute recycling and waste bins. So for instance, like if you go into the Rogers Center, recently they've had a revamp of the Rogers Center. It's been upgraded. All of the recycling, compost, waste bins in there are Bush Systems. And they also have a lot of companies, have a lot of business within the States. So it's looking forward to kind of getting onto that podcast. We're kind of slowly in the beginning stages of putting that together, but that's something that I'll share on their socials, but also on mine. So you can kind of see how there's a lot of relatability in terms of what the skills that I got working in broadcasting and how I've been able to take those skills and use them in this new job that I've, again, only been in for a few months.
That's great. Podcasting is something that I wouldn't think of for a waste management company. However, any way you can get your voice out there or get your message out there in a way that people can digest it on the walk or on a hike or what have you is definitely important for the company. It could be important for people in any type of company or role.
Well, the beauty about this podcast, and again, like we have just, we're in baby steps with this podcast, but it's like what's going to be happening is, if you're in that world of sustainability or you're in the environmental space, you're going to get to learn a lot about not only the products, but also because believe it or not, there are actually like cities that don't have recycling programs. It's almost weird to think that people don't have those programs now, but some cities don't, right? Even more so in the US. And so you'll be able to learn, why it's important, why we should be doing it, why you should do a waste audit in your office and what even is a waste audit. So it's kind of like, and the beauty of this podcast is I'm going to be talking to people who are experts, right? So I will be learning with the audience. Like to me, I'm learning in my new job. So I'll be learning at the same time as you are. And beyond that, I mean, you never know. It's so funny, like working in radio, and I'm sure you know this, being someone who's in radio yourself and in that creative content space. I've been on podcasts like this. I've co-hosted, I've guested. I've never really had like my own consistent podcast that I was putting out on my own. So this is going to kind of be a cool experience for me. And you never know. I mean, I've always kind of had a goal where I've wanted to do one, on my own too. So maybe that's something I'll explore, when I'm not at work.
Yeah, I'm in Jarvis, which is in Haldeman County, which is near Hamilton. We do have sort of a waste management program. There's flyers and things up. I think, especially if you're in the city, and Hamilton has gotten better over the years with the waste management, making sure things are cleaned up and things of that nature. But I think it's important for people to stay informed about what to do with their waste, where to put their waste, how to go about things to make sure the city stays clean and there's no backlog, especially in a city like Hamilton or Barrie with a lot of factories and such as well.
It's like, it's not only recycling, but it's like, recycling properly, right? So looking at, something says like compostable, like what does that mean? Waste, what does that mean, right? Papers, plastics, and whatnot. So it's like kind of learning, okay, yes, it's one thing to recycle, but are you recycling properly? So these are the things that, again, I've just been soaking up this knowledge the last few months. Like I've had a lot to learn, but it's been a great experience. And I think, for anyone listening who maybe is like yourself and who, went to school for broadcasting and content, like it's good to know that, yes, there are radio jobs, there are TV jobs out there, but then there's also other spaces that maybe you wouldn't have thought about exploring maybe until, you kind of go out there and say, oh, there are jobs where you're just doing public relations, or you're just doing communications, or you're just doing social media. They're out there.
How excited are you to be able to teach in broadcasting, radio, and creative content in your second year since the program is revamped, as Sam Cook as a program coordinator at Mohawk College in that program?
Sam is an absolute legend. Sam Cook. We love Sam Cook. And I love teaching. I love the conversations. I love the creativity. I love the passion. I love the drive. And even sometimes, like, working in the industry for as long as I have, it's like you're around people who work every day in a radio station or on a podcast, but being at that stage where you're hungry and you're thirsty and the only thing that you want to do is get out there and work in that industry, it actually re-energizes me. Even when there's times where, it's like life, it's a roller coaster. You have your ups and you have your downs. Sometimes it's like, I've had a great class and it's like, you know what? Man, like those students, put a smile on my face, or those students made me want to do better, or me do a better radio show, or me kind of rethink about how I want to do social media. So yes, I'm super excited to be back there, really, I guess in a matter of days from now too.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's going to be really exciting to see what the next crop of people do. I just graduated from the broadcasting, radio, and creative content program myself. I'm all at college, so I'm really excited to follow everyone on social media to see who is the next up and comers from that program.
Isn't it kind of cool to see, like, when you graduate like this, you just graduated like months ago at this point, right?
Correct.
And then to kind of, for lack of a better phrasing, keep tabs, go through your feed on Instagram, on Facebook, or wherever you're active, and just kind of see what everyone's been up to. And that in itself is like key, because you never know who in your contact list you could work with in the future, or maybe someone is working at a place that would be your dream job, and staying connected to those people is just, I don't think I would have worked in the industry for as long as I had I not made it a priority to have good relationships with as many people in the industry as I possibly could. You never can predict what job you're going to get. You never can predict what's going to happen, but kind of maintaining those connections and being an effective communicator will help you so greatly. 100%.
I've had several professors on my podcast. I've had Patrice Rippin, I've had Adam Oldfield, and I've had Marie Cassidy. And you weren't actually my professor, but you were in the professor group, in the professor corps, in the program when I was going there. So I've had you on. So even the connections to help you start a podcast, or the people at Mohawk College, professors in the radio and creative content program, can help you with advice. If you're a hard worker, someone who cares about what you do and putting in work every day, they're going to see that and help you down the road as well.
That's just it, right? If you're a good person and you are positive and you want to do good things and you're creative and you're going out of your way to reach out to people and try and make those connections to make things happen, I'm always happy to help someone. And obviously you were so prepared for tonight and just so organized. It's all very professional. So I know I never taught you, but I know people, like, obviously I know, like, Matt taught you, and I know, Sam Cook. And so I knew your name, and I see you on social media and all these things. So I knew who you were, right? Like, that's just working in this industry. It's like, even if you've never met someone, the name, or you kind of know someone who knows them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to keep those close connections and keeping a positive mindset, because things are ever changing and evolving. There are radio stations that are changing and evolving with podcasts. So trying to find your own way to do things is very important.
Absolutely. And I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there where, yes, are there changes? Absolutely. I mean, have I been on the end of changes before that weren't necessarily my decision? Yes. But yeah, you have to roll with it, right? And I think that sometimes what's helped me is kind of having that very close-knit group of people. Often they're people in the industry who I consider friends, and they call it a sounding board, right? And you ask those people, okay, so listen, this is a situation I found myself in. What should I do? And sometimes it's those people who've helped you move on to your next role. I've had people close friends of mine who lost their job, and it actually made me feel better knowing that I could help those people, because it's like, you know what, I'm not going to vouch for everyone, but if I've worked with you and I know you and I know you're a hard worker, I know you're a good person, and things don't always go our way, I think that that's important to help people where you can, because without help, I wouldn't be talking to you. Like, the reality of it is, if I hadn't spoken to people over the years, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I wouldn't have been a teacher at Mohawk, right? So it's all about kind of passing that on. I really believe that.
Good luck with your new podcast with Bush Systems. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the upcoming school year at Mohawk College.
Thank you so much for your time, Kyle. I really appreciate you, and you did an awesome job.